Verses 9 to 14. The reason given for the particular care God took for this people, so long before they were either born or thought of, as I may say, in our world, does yet more magnify the kindness, and make it obliging beyond expression. V9 For the Lord's portion is his people. All the world is his. He is owner and possessor of heaven and earth, but his church is his in a peculiar manner. It is his domain, his vineyard, his garden enclosed. He has a particular delight in it, it is the beloved of his soul, in it he walks, he dwells, it is his rest forever. He has a particular concern for it, keeps it as the apple of his eye. He has particular expectations from it, as a man has from his portion, has a much greater rent of honor, glory, and worship, from that distinguished remnant, than from all the world besides. That God should be his people's portion is easy to be accounted for he is their joy and felicity, but how they should be his portion, who neither needs them nor can be benefited by them, must be resolved into the wondrous condescensions of free grace. Even so, Father, because it seemed good in thy eyes so to call and to account them, the forming of them into a people, that they might be fit to enter upon this inheritance, like an heir of age, at the time appointed of the Father. And herein also Canaan was a figure of the heavenly inheritance, for, as it was from eternity proposed and designed for all God's spiritual Israel, so they are, in time, and it is a work of time, fitted and made meet for it. Colonel 112. The deliverance of Israel out of slavery, by the destruction of their oppressors, was attended with so many wonders obvious to sense, and had been so often spoken of, that it needed not to be mentioned in this song, but the gracious works God wrought upon them would be less taken notice of than the glorious works he had wrought for them, and therefore he chooses rather to advert to them. A great deal was done to model this people, to cast them into some shape, and to fit them for the great things designed for them in the land of promise, and it is here most elegantly described. He found him in a desert land, v10. This refers, no doubt, to the wilderness through which God brought them to Canaan, and in which he took so much pains with them. It is called the church in the wilderness, Acts 7:38. There it was born, and nursed, and educated, that all might appear to be divine and from heaven, since they had there no communication with any part of this earth either for food or learning. But, because he is said to find them there, it seems designed also to represent both the bad state and the bad character of that people when God began first to appear for them. Their condition was forlorn. Egypt was to them a desert land, and a waste howling wilderness, for they were bond slaves in it, and cried by reason of their oppression, and were perfectly bewildered and at a loss for relief. There God found them, and thence he fetched them. Their disposition was very unpromising. So ignorant were the generality of them in divine things, so stupid and unapt to receive the impressions of them, so peevish and humorsome, so froward and quarrelsome, and withal so strangely addicted to the idolatries of Egypt, that they might well be said to be found in a desert land, for one might as reasonably expect a crop of corn from a barren wilderness as any good fruit of service to God from a people of such a character. Those that are renewed and sanctified by grace should often remember what they were by nature. He led him about and instructed him. When God had them in the wilderness he did not bring them directly to Canaan, but made them go a great way about, and so he instructed them, that is, by this means he took time to instruct them, and gave them commandments as they were able to receive them. Those whose business it is to instruct others must not expect it will be done of a sudden, learners must have time to learn. By this means he tried their faith, and patience, and dependence upon God, and inured them to the hardships of the wilderness, and so instructed them. Every stage had something in it that was instructive. Even when he chastened them, he thereby taught them out of his law. It is said, PS 107:7, that he led them forth by the right way. And yet here that he led them about, for God always leads his people the right way, however to us it may seem circuitous, so that the furthest way about proves, if not the nearest way, yet the best way home to Canaan. How God instructed them is explained long after. Na 9:13, Thou gavest them right judgments and true laws, good statutes and commandments, and especially, v20, Thou gavest them also thy good spirit to instruct them, and he instructs effectually. We may well imagine how unfit that people would have been for Canaan had they not first gone through the discipline of the wilderness. He kept him as the apple of his eye, with all the care and tenderness that could be, from the malignant influences of an open sky and air, and all the perils of an inhospitable desert. The pillar of cloud and fire was both a guide and a guard to them. He did that for them which the eagle does for her nest of young ones, v. 11:12. The similitude was touched, ex 19:4, I bore you on eagle's wings, here it is enlarged upon. The eagle is observed to have a strong affection for her young, and to show it, not only as other creatures by protecting them and making provision for them, but by educating them and teaching them to fly. For this purpose she stirs them out of the nest where they lie dozing, flutters over them, to show them how they must use their wings, and then accustoms them to fly upon her wings till they have learned to fly upon their own. This, by the way, is an example to parents to train up their children to business, and not to indulge them in idleness and the love of ease. God did thus by Israel, when they were in love with their slavery, and loath to leave it. God, by Moses, stirred them up to aspire after liberty, and many a time kept them from returning to the house of bondage. He carried them out of Egypt, led them into the wilderness, and now at length had led them through it. The Lord alone did lead him, he needed not any assistance, nor did he take any to be partner with him in the achievement, which was a good reason why they should serve the Lord only and no other, so much as in partnership, much less in rivalship with him. There was no strange God with him to contribute to Israel's salvation, and therefore there should be none to share in Israel's homage and adoration. The settling of them in a good land. This was done in part already, in the happy planting of the 2 tribes and a half, an earnest of what would speedily and certainly be done for the rest of the tribes. They were blessed with glorious victories over their enemies, v. 13. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, that is, he brought him on with conquest, and brought him home with triumph. He rode over the high places or strongholds that were kept against him, sat in ease and honor upon the fruitful hills of Canaan. In Egypt they looked mean, and were so, in poverty and disgrace, but in Canaan they looked great, and were so, advanced and enriched, they rode in state, as a people whom the King of Kings delighted to honor. With great plenty of all good things. Not only the ordinary increase of the field, but, which was uncommon, honey out of the rock, and oil out of the flinty rock, which may refer either to their miraculous supply of fresh water out of the rock that followed them in the wilderness, which is called honey and oil, because the necessity they were reduced to made it as sweet and acceptable as honey and oil at another time. To the great abundance of honey and oil they should find in Canaan, even in those parts that were least fertile. The rocks in Canaan should yield a better increase than the fields and meadows of other countries. Other productions of Canaan are mentioned, v. 14. Such abundance and such variety of wholesome food, and everything the best in its kind, that every meal might be a feast if they pleased. Excellent bread made of the best corn, here called the kidneys of the wheat, for a grain of wheat is not unlike a kidney, butter and milk in abundance, the flesh of cattle well fed, and for their drink, no worse than the pure blood of the grape. So indulgent a father was God to them, and so kind a benefactor. Ainsworth makes the plenty of good things in Canaan to be a figure of the fruitfulness of Christ's kingdom, and the heavenly comforts of his word and spirit. For the children of his kingdom he has butter and milk, the sincere milk of the word, and strong meat for strong men, with the wine that makes glad the heart.